This, for an average person, is boring talk. But interestingly, it is one of the most fundamental parts, one of those very important elements of how we live. And what prompted me to record this video is actually stumbling on another video. Take a look.
Anywhere you go to online these days, somebody is complaining about the high cost of rent in Nigeria, especially in Lagos. While I understand the complaints because I'm also a victim, I find it funny because barely 2 years ago, the argument online was that building a house for rent was a bad investment because the return was low. I remember making videos cautioning against such messaging that was going to cause a problem for us in the future.
A couple of people sent me these tweets to get my opinion. So I went on Twitter to read the comments, and it was funny. A lot of people said it was a bad investment. They did not even understand why people do it. Some of them said they are discouraging their parents from building houses for rent. But you know what I find funny? That the same people saying this are the same people that will come out tomorrow and complain about the prices of rent in Lagos. They are the same people that will be begging the government to step in and regulate rent. Yet they are calling it a bad investment. I do not understand how some of...
What I want you to note from this video is how wide the difference is between the problem of the rich, the problem of the haves, and how far apart away it is from the problems of the poor. And to help us understand and connect to the depths of this conversation, I'm going to drive it around 3 points. First is how housing is a part of the economy, how housing influences and drives the economy. Second is how housing affects wealth distribution. And 3, how housing influences wealth inequality. That is how housing plays an important role in how wide and how fast the gap between the rich and the poor keeps expanding. So let's get into it and start with how housing is the one thing that connects the relationship between the economy, development, and governance. Now, the economy or economics operates at the intersection of value exchange, but at the same time as a self-balancing system. So, debit equals credit, money balances value, and input balances and justifies the expected or delivered outcomes. And development is basically how well we use public and private resources to meet physical, social, and economic needs. So that leaves us with governance, which is the system by which we use development to keep the wheels of the economic machine turning. That is, it is how government as a structure, as an entity, uses this physical, social, and economic development to drive economic outcomes. And that is why the ultimate goal of every government agency, ministries, or MDAs is to drive and influence or improve economic, social, or physical development in order to achieve increase in taxation, increase in IGR, or even GDP growth. While for the people, the expected outcome of this economic development is expected to yield financial security or economic security. Now, let's quickly put this aside and look at how all of this is connected to wealth distribution. While the incentives for the government to ensure continuous development is IGR, revenue, and GDP growth, the only thing that connects the rewards of this development for the people is the quality of life they live, economic security, and also upward economic mobility. And we can expand that into how well you live, how it affects and decides your opportunities, what you can get or you cannot get, and how all of these contribute to influence how fast or how quick you can increase your income. And that is why housing, in the form of where you live, the nature, the location, the quality, the pricing, and the conditions of where you live, influences and controls everything about your economic stability, your economic growth, your economic independence, and even your economic sufficiency. And this is important because the level of opportunities that you can have, the opportunities of economic outcomes that you can access, is directly connected. And as a result of how all of your physical, social, and economic environment increases your opportunity to increase your income. So whatever class of wealth or income distribution that you belong, the only way you either remain high or by which the low and middle can move up is by the amount of social, physical, and economic opportunities that you can leverage to increase the opportunities of outcome for you to improve or increase your income. And to further understand this relationship, let's talk about something someone called asset economy, which is simply how he communicates his observation that in the last 3 decades or so, properties have proven to be the most dependable retainer of wealth and also the most dependable source of income compared to other forms of assets. And this is so true that even some governments of some countries offer you zero tax incentives so that you can invest in properties in their country. And in response to that, what we've seen is more rich people putting their money in property because of that assurance, the dependability of property to increase in value and yield more passive income. So this dependability of return on investment is why a lot of more rich people are constantly competing to invest and put their money in property. And because of this competition for property prices keeps increasing. Remember, the higher the demand, the higher the price. But unfortunately, because only the rich have the resources, only the rich have the leverage to gather these properties, the adverse effect of this continuous competition for property has led to why a lot of people no longer have the opportunity or the leverage for upward economic mobility. And to help you make sense of that, let's quickly return to basic economics, where credit alert for Mr. A equals to debit alert for Mr. B. That is, in economics, money is truly like water. It balances itself out such that debit to somebody is credit to another. Income to somebody is a payment to another. Someone's profit equals loss for another. And the point I'm making here is someone's rent equals to someone else's income. So the ability of the rich to constantly gather property gives them the opportunity to constantly make money, which means they are constantly collecting money from those who do not have property, which is people who fall within the middle to low income class, the poor people, which in turn limits the ability of those people to own or gather properties. And that is why, because unfortunately, wages and income does not rise as fast as property value. The only thing that now makes a difference in whether you are able to climb the economic ladder, whether a low income person has the ability or the leverage to climb into the middle class, or for the middle class to climb into the high class, is whether you have a property or not. So because the rich have the capacity, the leverage, the cash, the resources to continuously gather properties, which also continuously becomes a competition for the highest potential for such property to generate income and retain value of wealth. Property prices keeps increasing beyond what the middle or the low income, the have-nots, can afford to own or gather. And because of this, for the rich, more property equals more income, which is equal to more wealth. Whereas for the poor, the increasing inability to own property equals increasing inability for leverage, which equals increasing inability to access opportunities. And that also equals increasing inability to increase income, which also equals increasing inability to climb the social economic ladder. And this is always true for every society, whether a thriving society, a working society, or a struggling one. This remains true in all cases. And the only difference is the better the opportunity to access housing, the closer the gap between your needs, your economic needs, and your desired economic outcomes and the opportunity for leverage. And this is how and why the major difference between the wealthy and the poor is just housing. And that is why when the rich are complaining about their cash flow problems, it shouldn't be an excuse or justification for the have-nots to then underplay or underlook the importance and the value and the essence of housing and the role it plays to their financial freedom or financial stability. And this is why in 2014, Matthew Roney said that the major difference in wealth concentration is not even your capital investment in tech or in software development. The simple difference in wealth concentration is just housing, which suggests that as long as average citizens, average Nigerians cannot access land ownership or own properties, the gap between the wealthy, the gap between the rich and the poor, between the haves and the have-nots will keep expanding and widening. And that is why it is important that we, Nigeria, get our housing right, especially at the basic demand and supply value creation level of social, physical, and economic development. The government can no longer play it safe. Because yes, we must also acknowledge the fact that the government doesn't have that high trust in its people to fulfill their social and civic responsibility as necessary and as required to keep the economic machine turning. But regardless, the government has no choice but to increase its investment in social, physical, and economic development. And this, as I have said many times on this channel, underscores the importance of communication and public engagement in governance. I mean, it is the true dividends of democracy that we claim to practice. So if what we say we need is better behavior towards social and civic responsibility, then we must be ready to increase public awareness because awareness guides behavior and structure responds better to behavior, better than it does to rules and regulations. Because it is when everybody understands the risks and rewards of trust that collaboration becomes less fragile. And when mutual benefits depend on each side showing up, each side honors their commitment because they've seen the logic in the long-term benefits. So as we design and develop economic development plans, let's integrate communication into these plans. Because even in the absence of certainty, when people have clarity about how the economic machine turns, about how government works, and also about how every outcome adjusts in their favor or otherwise, such clarity and understanding will help them embrace and support all the plans and initiatives of government. And with this better adoption and better behavior towards government objectives, we have better chances of success. So I hope this makes sense, and you can already see how housing is more than just a basic real estate product, but rather the foundation of economic prosperity and a fundamental ingredient to national prosperity. If it does, kindly share this with somebody who needs to hear this. And I hope this helps.